Hi, and welcome to the video. In this video, we're setting sail on a journey through the basic tools you'll need to craft your own wooden model ship. But before you rush out and spend hundreds or even thousands of pounds on tools, it's a good idea to find out if you will actually enjoy the hobby. So I've put together a list of the basic items you will need in order to complete the model. So batten down the hatches and let's dive in. First up, I would suggest a cutting mat. An essential item if you don't want to get into trouble for cutting a dining room table, or painting it, or gluing it. The mats come in various sizes. I would suggest using a minimum of an A4. Gives you a nice area to work on. You'll see they've got rough guides on for sizes. Whilst they may be accurate when you first get them, as soon as you start cutting into the mat, they're not going to be accurate, so just use it as a guide. And a good old hobby knife or craft knife. It's a versatile tool for precision cutting. It's perfect for trimming and shaping small wooden parts. I would recommend buying one that's easy to find blades for, because they do break quite frequently. I tend to buy a box of blades, so I've always got them individually wrapped, so keeps them nice and safe. Scissors or cutters. You'll use these mainly for when you're doing rigging, but they will make your life easier. You could sometimes use cutters, but they do tend to fray the ropes a bit, so I just tend to use these. Before I continue with the list of tools, I'd just like to ask you a question. Would you like me to do a video on 3 different kits from 3 different manufacturers, basically comparing each one side by side and also the build process side by side? If that's something you'd be interested in, please leave a comment below. You'll need a ruler to mark and measure things out. I would recommend using a metal one, for the simple reason being, once you're cutting items or cutting along it, with a plastic one you could cut chunks out of it quite easily. You can also see where the number marks are. Plastic one, you can scratch them off quite easily as well, so it just makes it easier with a metal one. An aluminium miter box and saw. Nice fine saw. The reason I would recommend an aluminium one, if you look at this plastic one, after a while you end up cutting into the plastic, so it's not going to give you accurate lines or cuts. So worth spending a little bit extra for the aluminium there. Next up, a hand drill with drill bits. You'll use this for doing pilot holes, or sometimes when you're doing the rigging, the blocks, you can't thread through the hole very easily, so it's a good idea sometimes just to clean it up. Another item you'll need is tweezers. Something very handy for handling small parts, adding detailed parts to your model, and very handy when it comes to rigging. Recommend spending a little bit more on the tweezers, because you'll find if you buy cheap ones like these ones, once you start picking things up, these here bend so easily, so get yourself a decent pair. You'll also need a pencil. I would recommend the automatic one over the regular pencil. Simple reason, to see the lead, you'll get a consistent line, consistent thickness with one of these. Whereas with this, when the lead starts wearing down, your line's going to get thicker and thicker. So always go for the automatic one. And needle files. You'll use these for cleaning up parts. Very handy. You can get cheaper ones. Sort of cheap set that came with something. They do work, but they are not the best. I'd always opt for either a modelling one or a woodworking file set. Better quality. You also need sandpaper. I tend to use the block more for doing the hull once I've planked it, and then I use these ones when I'm just tidying up parts. But you'll need an assortment of sandpapers. And clamps come in a variety of different sizes. You can never have enough clamps. But if you don't want to buy clamps to start with, you can use clothes pegs. Do exactly the same thing. Just don't get caught taking them from the laundry basket. Another thing I use is bulldog clips. Basically you get 2 bulldog clips. You take the arms off of one of them, like so. You then place it into one bulldog clip. So you'll get 2 of these clamps out of 3 bulldog clips. Then they can be used when you're doing planking on the hull. See this in the back there? You can attach it to your rib and that will hold your plank against the rib while the glue dries. Another thing I would recommend is a decent pair of cutters and some pliers. You may not always need these. If you've got some brass or anything like this in your kit, and the cutters are handy for cutting the parts out. If you need to bend any parts, then obviously the pliers. And then a square. You'll need this when you're actually building the frame up, because you need to make sure the ribs are square with the frame, otherwise you will have problems when it comes to planking and you may end up with a banana shaped boat, so it will curve in and out. Use a square to set the frame properly. If you don't have a square, a little tip here, you use a piece of Lego. They're engineered blocks, they're nice and square, and I think most people have got a bit of Lego at home somewhere, so also save yourself a bit of money there. Some people use pins when they're doing planking. You can get things like a pin pusher and a mini hammer. I don't tend to pin my planks anymore, but when I first started I did, because it did make life easier. So you may consider those as an option. And finally on the not quite finally, but on the basic side, you'll need a plank bender. I prefer the heat option. It comes with like a rounded edge. You could use a soldering iron. Or another option is this one. It basically cuts the back of the plank, allowing you to bend it. I've done a video on plank bending. I'll link it in the description, but it's not my preferred method. I prefer the heated one, but it's down to preference. Then finally, you'll need glue. A nice wood glue that dries clear. And I use a super glue as well. A lot of people don't. Some do. Find it very handy for when I want something to be in place and stay in place quickly. Lazy option, really. So that is the basics. That's what you'll need to complete any model ship. Now there are some tools I'm going to show you in a second. You don't need them. They do make life easier though. Yep, these tools aren't essential, but I do find them very helpful. Makes life a bit easier, a bit simpler and quicker. First up, we've got the cutter. It's ideal for doing cutting planks, especially the thinner ones. It's got measurements on it, so you can actually cut them all to the same length. Good thing with this, if you loosen the screw there, you can cut it to any angle. Find that very useful. Next up, we've got an extra pair of hands with the magnifying glass. Good for holding small parts. When you're doing the rigging, you can hold two parts jointed, so you can get various different angles or whatever. And again, not essential, but very useful. Marking calipers, very handy. Give you a digital readout. Set them to whatever distance you want. You can lock it so that it doesn't move, and you can also use these bits for actually marking. If you can see that on the camera, but it'll actually leave a mark. You can get plastic ones, but they don't tend to be as accurate, and if you use it for marking, it will soon wear down. Another thing I find very handy is a table vise. This one is a bit on the fancy side because I can change the actual angle of the ball here, so I can set it at different angles that I want to work at. So this when he undoes it. See. That comes in very handy as well. Another tool I find very useful is the old Dremel. You get a variety of different options. Sometimes it takes ages to do hand drilling, depending on what you want to do. So I like the Dremel for that. I've put some links in the description if you want to find these products on Amazon. If you make a purchase through the link, it will help the channel. You get a couple of pennies for each item you purchase. That helps me to create some of these videos for you. I hope you found this useful, and happy modelling.